Hi YouTube, welcome to Pagan Perspective. This is Megan, aka Spiritory, and today is Friday. So today we are talking, about a couple of things. So I have my list here. So I guess basically there's four main questions, and this question asker, it was a long question. But the gist of it is that this question asker basically says that they're kind of emotionally struggling, if you will, with the sort of ancient, not so great practices of pagans. So, for example, having heavy patriarchal societies, societies that condone rape or the subjugation of women or things like that, ancient societies that were pagan, especially if you are a practitioner of that tradition. So the four questions, basically, so some of them I can answer, some of them I kind of have to do my own thing like always. But so the first one is opinion on rape in ancient paganism. Whoa, what a big topic. I mean, I feel like we could do a video just on that alone. Such a big topic. So the way that I look at history, right? So we know rape is not okay. I mean, it's not. And, we have rape culture is still so alive and well, unfortunately, and there's so much that we can do to fight against it. If we then look at the past, right, to just basically give our opinion on what happened, I think that the question, at least the way I'm taking it, is not so much, do we think it's bad? I think that's pretty obvious. It's bad. However, I think more than that, it's what was the context? What was happening in the world at the time that it was happening, and what can we learn from it? And how can we, know better and do better, right? And I think that one of the things about ancient civilizations is that they were so great in number and varied in their practices, and so much of many of the ancient pagans, and I'm talking before, right, the Greeks, before the Egyptians, we're talking early humans. So many of those pagan practices we're not quite sure on, right? We have our educated guesses, and anthropologists and archaeologists, they like to speculate on what it is, but every day there's some new discovery. Now we found out that this great warrior, right, who these archaeologists and anthropologists thought was this great warrior, was awesome, is a woman, right? This amazing warrior who's buried with all of these weapons and accolades and things like that is a woman. And so that changes the idea of what happened. And so part of me also needs to step back when I look at these things and say, you know what? This ancient civilization, there was a context that this was happening. It's not okay that it was happening. However, it's an ancient civilization, and all we can do at this point is learn from it, right? And grow from it, right? Make sure that we don't make the mistakes of the past. Like, that's essential. For me, it's all about the growth. It's all about how can we learn from those things, right? So the second one is, basically to talk about, the question answer made it sound like no matter what society your tradition came from, there was something negative in it. And that, I think for a lot of pagan traditions, that would be the case. So I'm a hereditary path. And while I'm not saying that there's nothing negative in my past, it's not intrinsic to my path. It's at least that was never part of my understanding of it ever. One thing to remember too is, so I think I've mentioned my heritage, and so my heritage is matriarchal. So I am Kanesatake, with Mohawk, Iroquois, and so we're a matriarchal society. And that changes things, right? When you have a matriarchal society. And it's not, and remember, matriarchal doesn't mean the opposite of patriarchal, right? So matriarchal isn't about women in charge. It is more about honoring both and recognizing the sacred place that women have. So in my culture, women are the Council of Women, the women elders. They're the ones who decide when it's time to go to war, right? Or used to decide. And they are the ones who would elect, right, the war chief, right? And so he might lead male warriors into war. However, it's the women who decide when that's going to be, and also who is going to lead them. And they can get rid of whoever they want anytime they want to. Also, the women are the title holders. So land is always, and possessions, anything like that, clan is passed down through the female line. So that's a little different. But I can hear what the question's saying, and I think that I'm going to kind of address it a little bit in the next two questions. So it's two more. The next one is, so, how do we deal with a tradition or path, right, that we don't agree with, right? How do we kind of take that on, and what do we do with it? And the next one I think is very related, and it's sort of, and I'm paraphrasing, but how do you reconcile if you do leave parts out, right? The parts that you might not disagree with, if you leave them out, how do you reconcile that with your path and your tradition? And so this is the way I look at these kind of two things. Is one, my path is ever evolving, right? So even though it's a family tradition, I am adding stuff to it all the time. I have learned so much from my extended family and friends in the pagan community. I have grown so much in just being on this channel and all of the people that I talk to and experience. And that helps me. I add to my faith because of that. I add to the tradition and I pass that on. That's something that I will bring to the next generation. And every generation does that. And every generation adds the parts that they find interesting or new. And there are parts that maybe aren't for me and I don't really do them. Now, I wouldn't necessarily take them out of the oral history, but I don't need to practice them if it's not up my alley, right? So I very much am a believer that there is nothing wrong with taking this part and this part and this part and creating something for yourself. Because what it is, it's about what resonates for you. What is the faith that's in your heart? What parts do you connect with? Because faith is personal. This is your personal tradition. And I understand the need to be true to a tradition, especially like Reconstructionists and things like that. Like, I understand that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's awesome for the people who are purists in that way and who take, right, the joy from practicing their faith in that way. I also think that there's an equal amount of validity in picking and choosing the parts of your faith that you resonate with the most, saying, no, this is what I believe in. This is what I believe in. That's what hits me. That's what hits my soul, right? That's what I connect with. And that's how I'm going to practice my faith. And so I very much am a believer in that. That is an entirely valid way to have your faith. And so I don't see a problem reconciling leaving the parts you disagree with out, because those parts don't resonate with you. And if they're not resonating with you and they don't feel good to you, then I don't see why you need to have them. Other people might, and that's okay too. I think the big thing is there's no right or wrong. This is just sort of my personal belief on it. And I do feel like you can take this bit and take this bit. In fact, I think it would be really amazing if, there were some Christians who I've met people who say that, well, I can't pick and choose the parts of my faith to believe in. So I have to believe that, being gay is wrong. But if I didn't, then it would be okay. right? And it's like, I want them to pick and choose then. I want them to stop, decide, because in a way they are. I mean, really, I think people pick and choose all the time without even knowing it. It's what we focus on and what we pay attention to. There's plenty of parts of the Bible that a lot of Christians don't pay attention to. And then it's interpretation as well as that. It's in your interpretation of the faith, right? So yes, we know a certain amount about different ancient societies. We don't know 100% though, because we weren't there, right? So some societies we know way more than others, right? Because they had better recording systems for what they did. It's just still one of those things where I don't see anything wrong with only taking in the parts that mean something and are spiritual to you and leaving the parts that aren't. So that's just sort of where I stand with it. But I wish you so much luck with it. And I hope the question asker, I hope this helps in some way. I think that you have to trust your heart. And if your heart tells you that this part is not for me, but this part is, trust your heart, Go with your love, go with your guts, and I think it'll work out. So that's it for today, guys. As always, blessed be and aloha.